The victory parade in Russia, which will happen on May 9th, is surrounded by many mysteries. First, some people expected that Putin wanted to win in this war before this parade. And then it was assumed that Russia will try to capture at least something and justify this as a victory. Well, the resistance of the Ukrainian army has been very underestimated by Russia. That is why no more military goals of Russia that have to be achieved before May 9th are being discussed. Instead, many people are now expecting the president of Russia, Vladimir Putin, to make a huge announcement during this parade. What kind of announcement is he planning to make? How will this change the face of war? Could it be even about him retiring as the president of Russia? And these are the questions that we will be talking about in my today's video. What's up, investors and people of Reddit? It's the Russian Dude, and this is your daily update on Russian-Ukrainian war as of Monday, May the 2nd. You can see the main events of the day to my right, along with the timestamps. The victory parade, which will happen in Moscow 1 week from now, May 9th, will be an extremely significant event. At first, it was announced that Russia will try to win in this war before May 9th, so that this victory parade can be justified. Then the narrative changed, is that since Russia was not able to win this war as fast as they wanted, is that now they needed to capture at least something so that the parade can be justified. And now Russians are realizing that capturing even something is not as easy as they thought. Because of this, many higher government officials of Russia started saying that the rumors about Russia winning before May 9th were unjustified. Which basically means that they were like, no, we don't need to win before any particular date, we'll just win whenever we can win. Which is once again just another confirmation that the advancements of Russian army is getting harder and harder every single day. But nevertheless, it is expected that still something extremely important will happen during this parade. Now people estimate that President of Russia, Vladimir Putin, will make a huge announcement before the parade commences. And one of the main guesses is that Vladimir Putin will announce country-wide mobilization, which means that previously only people who wanted to go to Ukraine were enlisted as a part of the Russian army. But country-wide mobilization means that Russian men who are actively enlisted in the army will now be forced to go to Ukraine. And I mean, it's not like this never happened, it is now that it will be just official. And the reason why would Putin select this victory parade to announce possible countrywide mobilization, it is because historically, after watching this parade, many Russians feel extremely patriotic. And by the way, for those of you who do not know, the reason why Russia still has this parade every single May 9th is to celebrate the defeat of Nazistic Germany back in 1945. For the last couple of weeks, the residents of Moscow were able to see the preparation for this parade, which basically means it will happen. And by the way, I am planning to live stream this parade, and this will happen from the night from Sunday to Monday. In Moscow, this parade will start at 10 AM Monday, May 9th, and because of the time zones, I'll be live streaming this starting 3 AM. We will be watching the parade together, I'll be translating everything to you, and my main goal will be to collect as many donations as possible, which will be later sent to Ukraine. Just think about it, we'll be watching victory parade of Russia and using the money we collected to support Ukraine. And by the way, this time it is estimated that the parade will have fewer military vehicles because some of them were sent and probably lost in Ukraine. And another interesting fact about this parade is that this plane Il-80 will also be a part of the parade. In Russia, this plane is known as the Doomsday plane. And the reason for this, it is because this plane is supposed to be used by Russian higher government officials in case there is a nuclear war. And personally, it thinks that they're like trying to say something to us, but I guess let's see. And by the way, if you like this style of daily news reporting, feel free to like this video and subscribe to my channel. Also, please make sure to check the link in the description if you wish to support Ukraine with us. I will be donating all of my Patreon memberships at the end of each month to Ukraine. And in April, we were able to donate $150 together. And I'm personally thanking every single one of you who made this donation possible. So let's take this number to 300 in May. The president of Ukraine, Vladimir Zelensky, says that the probability of Russian government using the nuclear weapons is very high. But his almost exact quote was as following: "You cannot not anticipate that the Russian government will not use the nuclear weapons. Or in fact, they can. Both scenarios are very, very probable. Because the history shows us that all the actions that Russian government was taking previously can be divided into two categories. First of all, they were doing something without thinking the consequences, and the second category is that they were realizing the consequences, but they just simply didn't care. And by the way, this statement that President Zelensky made, I think perfectly describes the mindset of Russian officials. What I mean by that is that there is almost never clear definition on why they are doing this and what's the purpose of this. Every single big decision can be made one day, and the next day they can override this decision by doing completely something else. And even though the probability of nuclear attack at this very moment is extremely low, the military expert of the US, Joseph Cirincioni, gave us 5 possible outcomes. The first and the most likely case scenario is that Russia will use nuclear weapons in Black Sea territory. But they will use it far from any territory, and this attack will be mainly just demonstration of force. The second case scenario is that Russia will use nuclear weapon against military infrastructure in Ukraine. In this case, the weapon will be not as destructive, but still, come on, this is a nuclear strike. The third case scenario, and I'm quoting right here, is that Putin will make the second Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And what he meant by that is the nuclear attack will be against the population of Ukraine. But in this case, the response from NATO and the US will obviously be immediate. The fourth case scenario is already getting pretty dire, is that Russia will be crazy enough to attack some of NATO objects. And finally, worst case scenario, in case Putin gets extremely desperate, he can literally send nuclear weapons against the US. This is the most dangerous and the most unrealistic case scenario, but nevertheless the military expert still highlights this. Russian propagandist number 3, Dmitry Kiselyov, was also threatening Western countries that Russia will use nuclear weapons against them. And guess what? Just a couple of days after he made these threats, he and his family escaped to Dubai. So he was basically like one of these annoying young siblings who told to his older brother, if you don't do this, I'm gonna complain about you to my mom. And then when the older brother responded by saying something like, come here, I'm gonna whoop your butt, this younger brother just went inside his room, locked the door and was hiding and crying. Which is, by the way, not the very first example of similar behavior of Russian propagandists. First they make some provocative statements and then they're just in hiding. During the last couple of days, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Russia was making very provocative statements. First of all, he was responding why Russians are claiming that all the higher officials of Ukraine are Nazis, even though some of them are Jewish. And the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Russia, the main diplomat of Russia's response, was that Hitler also had Jewish blood. He then also said that the most anti-Semite people are also Jewish. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Israel obviously didn't like it, and they were asking Lavrov for explanations. His next statement was about Russia trying to achieve some kind of victory before May 9th. And he said that Russia will not be trying to claim any victory before any specific date, and that this war will be over as soon as all the goals of this military operation are achieved. The third statement he made was pretty funny. He said that Russia is not asking Vladimir Zelensky to give up, Russia is asking him to stop resisting. And the next thing is that Russia is not planning to overthrow the government in Ukraine. He said that the only country which is doing this is the United States of America. His final provocative statement was that the country of Moldova is being dragged into NATO. What he meant by that, and this was like literally indirect threat, is that Moldova should not worry about this special military operation of Russia getting closer and closer to its borders every single day. What Moldova should really worry about is that NATO is trying to forcefully add this country to their alliance. And I mean, if you're following my channel every single day, you probably already know that there is some kind of military destabilization in Pridnestrovia region. Which can be supported by this article from the Times magazine, is that Russia is already planning its military liberation of country of Moldova. And one of the main reasons why would Russia need to engage another country in this special military operation, it is because the Pridnestrovia region is being constantly harassed by Moldovians. Yes, this is according to the Russian government. Pridnestrovia region is famous for having predominantly Russian-speaking population, who separated from the country of Moldova back in 1990s. And since then, once again according to Russia, Moldova has been constantly harassing this region and trying to get them back. And so Russia, as the ambassador of goodwill, will try to liberate Pridnestrovia region by saving everyone and letting them be independent. Basically, basically the same thing that they're claiming to do in Donbass region. Very peaceful resolution. And even though according to Russia the intentions are good, you can see many people, especially men of Prидnestrovia, are trying to leave this region. I mean, they probably believed Russia in the very beginning when they said that they're gonna help them, but they saw the experience with the Ukrainians and they decided to just take their destiny in their own hands. This week, the evacuation of civilians who are hiding beneath Azovstal factory in Mariupol has finally started. The United Nations has confirmed that the first group of civilians of approximately 100 people has successfully escaped the territory. But then once again, this Monday, May the 2nd, people saw black smoke above this factory. At this very moment, there are no confirmations that other civilians were able to escape, and most likely at this very moment, the evacuation has paused. In this map, we can see the current state of the war as of Monday, May the 2nd. There were no significant advancements by either side, and the main military action is still concentrated in the east of the country and south of the country. But recently, several explosions were spotted in Belgorod region, which is on the territory of Russia. It is not the first time there are military interventions on the territory of Russia, and the residents of Belgorod region are really afraid that the war is coming back to its territory. And the Ministry of Defense of the United Kingdom also gave us several updates on this war. And the most important one is that Russia is trying to overthrow the government in Kherson region. What they're planning to do is to establish their own pro-Russian government and eventually create a referendum about separating from Ukraine. It has also been reported that Russian currency ruble is being actively pushed in this region to replace Ukrainian hryvnia. And one of the reasons why Russia wants to take control over Kherson region is so that they can properly defend the Crimea Peninsula. And by the way, if you want to see more details, feel free to pause the video. Last week, Oleg Tinkov, who is the creator of one of the biggest banks in Russia, Tinkoff Bank, had to sell his 35% share. And in his most recent interview with the New York Times, Oleg Tinkov mentioned that he was forced to sell his share. And the most probable reason why he had to do this is because of his anti-war slogans. Previously, he was speaking against this war and he was judging Russians who support the war. Even though several years ago, while he was still inside Russia, he was widely supporting Putin, and he is saying that Putin is the only president that Russia needs. But as soon as he was able to escape Russia, his narrative drastically changed. So he was criticizing this so-called special military operation, and just a couple of days later, he was forced to sell a third of his bank share. And just like mentioned previously, he was forced to do this because otherwise this bank will be nationalized by the Russian government. But nevertheless, the selling price was only 3% of the fair value of his share, which is still a lot of money, but as you can see, way below that it was fairly estimated. Thank you so much for your attention, stay safe, check the link in the description, and see you tomorrow.